Republican Congressman Peter King of New York is joining us. Congressman, thanks very much for joining us. Have you been briefed on this Shabaab terror threat against malls in the United States?
No, I've not been officially briefed. I will be tomorrow. I'll be back in Washington, and we'll be getting a briefing early tomorrow afternoon.
Well, when the Homeland Security Secretary, a man you know, Jay Johnson, who's a very smart guy, a lot of experience, used to work at the Pentagon, as you know, when he says Americans need to be, in his words, particularly careful in malls, what does that say to you?
Well, again, from what I know of these threats generally, I would say, first of all, Shabaab probably does not have the capability of carrying out an attack here by itself. However, they have cooperated over the years with Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, which does have the capacity. And I would just say that we should take it seriously. But on the other hand, I would say Americans should continue to do what they've done before. If they were going to malls before, continue to do so. Just be more alert. If you see something, say something. I would say the one area that has the most concern would be in Minnesota because, first of all, Mall of America was there. But secondly, that's where the large Somali American population is. And they've had well over 20 young men go from Minneapolis to Somalia to be trained, some for ISIS, even, actually about 2 or 3 for ISIS, but more than 20 for Al-Shabaab, and a number have been killed. In fact, the gentleman I saw on your show there before, Mr. Behe, he was actually a main witness of mine when I held the hearings on Islamic radicalization. And for a while, there was almost an assembly line of young men going from Minneapolis to Somalia, including his nephew. But people like him have actually tried to turn the community to make sure they cooperate more with the police and with law enforcement. But if there's any area that I think could be vulnerable, it would be the Mall of America because, again, if you just have 2 or 3 from that community, and there's been over 20 in the past, then, there is a threat.
We know that in this latest Shabaab video, they also made a specific threat against Westfield Corporation malls in the U.S., in Europe, elsewhere in Australia. And we know, we did some checking, there are 2 Westfield malls in your district out in Long Island. So what do you do about this? What are you telling your constituents? Do you think they should start avoiding those Westfield malls, or should Westfield malls start beefing up security there?
No, I don't. In fact, one is actually very close to my district office. Well, if they should continue to do what they've been doing, if they're going to go to the mall, go. I can tell you the Nassau County Police, the Suffolk County Police, work with the NYPD, with the state police, the FBI, the Joint Terrorism Task Force. They are doing all that can be done. And the reality is, Wolf, that the real security, yes, we have to have more security at the mall, but it's going to be intelligence that stops this. We have to have intelligence, whether it's surveillance on the ground, whether it's the NSA, doing whatever we can to get the intelligence to stop it. But malls, we've known for a long time that they are prime targets. They're harder to secure. But I know, for instance, police departments have done drills. They've gone through this before. They have, they are doing surveillance. So I would, again, we can't be giving in to these type threats. Now, if there's something more specific comes, then maybe, we'll have to adapt. But right now, I would say, I would urge my constituents to continue doing what they've done before. And if you're going to go to the mall tomorrow, go to the mall tomorrow. But I would urge them, if they see something, say something, and be fully cooperative with the police and security. If they're asked to do something, do it.
Would you recommend doing what they do at big malls in Israel, outside of Tel Aviv, for example, or parts of Europe, have metal detectors, police at the entrances going through handbags, checking to see if there's any metal coming in? Is that necessary in the United States?
Well, it's not now. Again, if we pick up intelligence saying that there are operatives in this country who are planning these attacks, then, we may have to make, again, adapt in certain locations, certain cities. But I would say no, we can't just, based on one video, change what we've been doing. And we've known since September 11th, 2001, that malls are a prime target. Department stores, any place you have Americans congregating in a relaxed setting, sporting events, we can go to movie houses, playhouses, all of those are targets. And what stops it is intelligence, having obviously surveillance, but also getting that intelligence to see if there's anything unusual happening, whether or not anyone might be coming here, whether or not there's been any unusual purchases in the area, whether or not people who are suspect have been acting in a different way. And that's why it's so important to have sources in the communities. That's why it's important for the police on the ground to have their, again, sources of information so they would be tipped off on something like this.
Congressman, we have a lot more to discuss, including the latest ISIS videos. What's going on in Syria? ISIS has released shocking new images of prisoners kept in cages in a terror training camp for children. This comes as the top U.S. spy chief warns there are now blind spots in tracking terrorists. We're back with Republican Congressman Peter King of New York. He's a key member of the House Homeland Security and Intelligence Committees. What's ISIS's objective in releasing this kind of video, Congressman?
Well, I think this is part of the overall attempt to, again, instill fear. I think it's also to try to scare off the Kurds, which I think is a mistake. I think the Kurds will react extremely violently if anything happens to any of those men in the cages. I think it's to convince people in the region that they're going to win, that they're in charge, that they have the upper hand, and that they can't be stopped, and to get more people to line up on their side. Those who want to be with the winner and are afraid of what's going to happen if they don't end up supporting ISIS.
And this video of them really featuring a sniper, featuring children, is it simply propaganda? Do they think this really generates support, brings in new recruits?
Well, so far they've been successful. We keep saying that when they show, people being burned to death or being beheaded, it's going to turn off people in the region. But it must be working for them is, again, the type of person that they're trying to recruit, the type of person they're trying to attract. They must feel there's enough of them out there, and I guess it's working for them because everything you read is how their numbers are increasing and people are rallying to them, which is a very, very troubling sign that, even under Hitler, the Nazis didn't disclose what they were doing to the Jews in the concentration camps. They tried to keep it a secret. And even after the war, they were trying to destroy, near the end of the war, destroy records of what they had done. But here, in this case, you have ISIS actually bragging about it, showing the world how horrible and brutal and inhumane they are. So this is a whole different breed of enemy, a whole different type, and apparently it must be working for them, at least from their weird, warped perspective.
Yeah, and we just heard the head of the National Security Agency tell our own Jim Sciutto that there are, in his words, blind spots in the U.S. ability to track these terrorists. What are the biggest vulnerabilities out there? What concerns you the most?
Well, I can't go into it, but I know from being on the Intelligence Committee, there are blind spots. This is because of Snowden. And for those Americans, including some in the Congress, who thought that Snowden was some kind of a hero, this is one of the inevitable byproducts and inevitable results of what he did. The enemy has tracked what he made public, and they've been able now to change their method of communication, which is why I say he was a traitor to the country, and it's going to cost lives. And the fact that there are blind spots, and not just with ISIS, but with other terrorist organizations who have adapted based on what they learned from Snowden, and it does put more people at risk.
That American humanitarian aid worker who was killed in Syria, Kayla Mueller, her family says the swap for Sergeant Bo Bergdahl in exchange for 5 Taliban prisoners at Guantanamo Bay at the prison there actually made the situation worse for their daughter. You think those comments are fair?
No, I mean, I was obviously opposed to the deal for Sergeant Bergdahl, but again, I don't know enough of the details. And listen, I understand why your family would say that. I can't imagine what it must be like to be in that situation, but I don't want to be second-guessing the president as far as this. Again, I was opposed to the deal, but that whole arrangement. But as far as this effect coming from it, I'm not going to make that connection. Whatever policy difference I would have with the president is a matter of policy. I don't think, based on what I know, that he would have anticipated that, this happening to that poor woman.
I'll ask you a question that have been asked other Republicans who are thinking of running for the Republican presidential nomination, and I know you're thinking of running yourself. You visited New Hampshire a few times already. What did you think of the former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani's suggestion, his blunt statement, that the President of the United States does not love America?
Yeah, Rudy Giuliani's a friend of mine. I would not have said it the way he said it. But with Rudy, and I've discussed this with Rudy, I was actually with him earlier that evening. He made the statement. He is so frustrated and angered at what he sees as a policy which is hurting the U.S. and the president's lack of intensity when he describes it. The point he was trying to make, I believe, is that the president seems reluctant to show the type of emotion that other presidents have shown. and that type of actual dedication. Now, I believe the president does want to get the job done, but he does show, to me, a lack of intensity. He almost discusses these things in an academic way, and I find that it's certainly disturbing. But I would not have said what Rudy said, but again, where he was coming from, I know what he was trying to say, because he is very, very concerned that the president's lack of really emotion, his failure to show emotion, and his somehow this desire the president has to show a certain equivalency. Rudy, after what he saw in 9/11, he finds this very disturbing. And again, I would not have used that terminology, but I understand where Rudy is coming from. And he's, again, as far as I'm concerned, an outstanding American.
Well, give me a yes or no. Do you believe the president loves America?
I think he does, but he has a different level of intensity than I'd say that I would, or Rudy would, or others. But does he love the country? Sure, he's the president of the United States.
And so it was a blunder on his part, Giuliani, to make an assertion like that. Do you believe that?
No, I wouldn't say it's a blunder. I'd say Rudy expressed it in a way that I wouldn't have said it. But on the other hand, I know what Rudy was trying to say, and I have too much respect for Rudy to say that it was a blunder. I would just say I would have said it differently.
Should he apologize to the president?
No, I think Rudy has explained what he meant. I think that's enough. And again, when I think of all the things that were said about George Bush and how Bush lied and people died and somehow President Bush didn't care, or even President Obama himself, or Senator Obama then back in 2008, when he said that President Bush was unpatriotic. No, listen, Rudy has said it. He's explained what he said, what he meant. I thought today's op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, he laid it out pretty well. And I hope maybe we can use this as a kickoff to a debate as to what has to be done and why the president should show more intensity and more emotion.
We'll have more on this story coming up later. Congressman, as usual, thanks very much for joining us.
Well, thank you.